Hello, my dears. So, I want to talk to you about miracles and weaving miracles. So, I've got this new group that I am creating that people are coming into already called Weavers of Miracles. And it's weekly for an hour and a half. We're going to be connecting with your higher selves, getting to know your higher selves, working with the Akashic Masters, bringing in the each group through some centering and grounding and connecting what it's like to feel and experience your higher self very consciously, and working very directly with your own higher self and the wisdoms that you bring through, along with connecting through the Akashic Masters. So because I am who I am, and we are in this animal human awakening that I am at the forefront of, with all the animals and councils of animals and the Akashic Masters through One Heart University and all of the work that we do together. We will also be connecting with the animals and across dimensions. So consciously, animals in this lifetime, consciously with animals who've passed, with animal guides, etc. And this is the Miracle Weavers Mastermind. So we are, looking at connecting into the energies of what are miracles, like redefining what this is, right? Because it's not what we were necessarily always taught. So that we can look at all of these amazing changes that are possible, tapping into a much larger energy of who we are as divine sovereign beings, so that we can open into what it is that our soul is most needing, desiring, through our hearts, through our soul's purpose, and weaving what's most needed, right? There's both this conscious co-creation, there's the opening into what's possible, so that we're not just figuring things out from our ego self, from our human personality self, but we are learning to consciously, with all of our words, with all of our feelings, with all of our intentions, ways of opening into what is actually possible. Not through the old stories, not through the old paradigms, though we will be working with those in terms of what are they in our lives, what gets stuck, what do we get caught up in, what do we loop around with, those old patterns, those old stories, those old pains, the wounds, right? Ancestral stuff. Whatever it is, working with that in ways that help us use that for fuel, for moving forward in our lives, for stepping into being on our own leading edges of whatever it is that's going on in your particular life. So whether you are having career-related stuff, work-related with personalities, things going on with your animals, things in your own household that aren't working quite right. If you're in a place where you are wanting to retire, have retired, and you're like, what's next? If you're in the midst of your career and you're like, what's next? If you want to be more specifically connected, more directly aligned with your particular purpose and what that means for you, right? It's not just a thing, but the threads of what that means for you and how it comes into your personal work, your personal purpose, and what that doing more good in the world means. Whether it is in your own household as a mom, whether it is in a career-related thing, whether you're an entrepreneur type of things, whether you're retired and living alone, whether you're single and not living whether you're single and not retired, whatever the combination of things are, if you are interested in becoming a miracle weaver of your soul's purpose, literally, if you are interested in multidimensional healing with your higher self and the Akashic Masters, if you are interested in exploring what that means for you, what that could even possibly mean, if your heart just says yes and resonates, then this is for you, right? This is a model of flow, weaving new realities. I am present to it all of the time. I am in circumstances that are not always the easiest, in caretaking for an elder family member, right? It's an honor, it's a privilege, and there's a lot to it, right? While I am also doing these kinds of things and working. And so whatever your circumstances are in, that you are in, we are coming together in a group of people who want more of how can we weave miracles throughout each and every day through any circumstance. When we open into these possibilities, miracles do happen. They may seem very small, but it's up to us to recognize what are those things, right? So we are going to be clearing out like the fears, the pain, the guilt, the heartache, sense of shame, like old stories, like psychic stresses. Like for those of you who are empaths, like I am, for those of you, like how do you live in this world with all the stuff going on and all the ways that there's conflict and weird and bizarre and, difficult things going on outside of us, perhaps in your own life. How is it that we can be in these states of being to call together a different and new reality? And what that feels like, what the bumps are like doing it, like the growth, and how we can open into this in ways that are miraculous in and of themselves. How we can shift, how we can cultivate these powerful mindset shifts. It's not just our minds, our emotional intelligence, how we can cultivate resilience inside of ourselves, right? This is a pathway of flow, an infinity flow pathway, a pathway of beauty, a pathway of weaving miracles. And we are here to weave these things individually and collectively, right? So that we can practice the art of letting go of emotions that no longer serve us. Practice the art of letting go of thoughts that keep us small, that keep us in heartache, that keep us in a sense of suffering. Continuously practicing that art. And it is an art, right? It takes a huge amount of courage to walk this kind of path and to persevere with it. That's why it is weekly, so that we continuously keep coming back into this energy, reminding ourselves, supporting each other, receiving, the art of receiving all the goodness that's actually here, opening into that and practicing what needs to let go, what needs to get clear, what is that about? Practicing the art of reflection, practicing the art of opening, of practicing the art of what's entailed in shifting our mind, so that it's not just a word or a sentence or a phrase, right? But that we actually are able to embody it so that we can do this for ourselves. That's our call. It's a call to light. It's a call to standing in our own sovereign clarity, our own sovereign divinity, like the divine flowing through us. And what is in your heart? What is your soul's purpose? And how are you here to serve both yourself and the larger, right? So I have very specific ways that I have been gifted of learning for my own self and with clients and with groups of releasing heartache in particular ways. Like, I work with people with animals all the time, and the animals have just shown so much, right? Like, so much ongoing about what this transition is like, about from life to death, from living and being in the present moment, about letting go, right? So if you've had animals, more than one animal, you have experienced the heartache of loss, right? And likely other types of losses in your life, right? And how, when we stay in those places of grief and heartache, it's not about not feeling. It's imperative to feel the feelings, but we can feel the feelings in ways that help us move forward, right? I used to sit in grief and go down under in ways that went on for not just hours or days, but weeks, months, and really for many, many, many years, as an underlying way of how I lived my life, with a tremendous amount of grief, pain, and suffering. And it's not that I don't feel pain or grief or even suffering at times, but I don't have to sit in it in the same ways. There's things that we can do inside of ourselves to keep ourselves growing and opening and not held back by those places, right? The fear of never loving again, of not letting another animal in, of not letting another person in, about not being that vulnerable again. I don't want to feel that pain again, right? I get it. I know it. Inside and out, upside down, backwards and forwards. And it doesn't mean I don't feel those things, right? So we learn how we can move through things differently. That's the point. We learn the practices, right? And we can do it together. And through those practices, we are learning about weaving miracles. It's an extraordinary thing to tap into, right? The day that I set forth this, call it a launch, was a particularly challenging day in the rest of my life outside of this and these openings. And my guides, the Akashic Masters, were very purposeful in, like, it was like a window opened up inside of me. It was like, today and now. And the rest of the day changed. It was filled with these amazing things shifting that I call miracles, because I don't think they would have shifted had I not claimed the power of this for my own self, right? I'd been working on this, developing it, and literally it was just a window, boom. It was like a key turned, open, the door opened, here we are. So we are looking at discovering things about your own divine truths that are true for you, not just, universal truths, but your own divine truths of feeling a sense of accomplishing what you need to. And I don't necessarily mean, it could be, like amassing a fortune or, having success in your business, but really breaking that down into what are these important elements of what feels like success and competence for your own self. And it could be, well, today I made those meals. It could be, today I made those deals, linking in all of these projects together that will be particularly helpful for so many people and or animals. And yes, money will be flowing through that. It could be any range of level of competence and success, right? It's ways, what we'll be working with are also like ways to flip these switches inside of ourselves, these internal switches, so that you can find the ways of flourishing and thriving and moving forward and creating more of what you do want. like clearing the nuances of perfectionism. An ongoing and interesting thing that may have been keeping you stuck or in some parts of frozen or overwhelmed, right? Helping you create new ways of focusing and looking at even what is perfectionism in yourself. Like, how has that been held in you? Like, how you've held yourself to high standards, where that's come from, how that's been handed down, why that's in place, not just from your intellectual, but really feeling and experiencing why that's even in place in the beginning to begin with, what that has to do with your own personal soul contracts and vows for your own self and your own soul's purpose. How does that connect with your soul's purpose? And what are you going to be able to do with that, you personally, so that you can find your way through in miraculous ways? Not because you're strategizing and figuring it all out and making all the to-do lists, and those can be helpful, but when we open into these other realms, it brings through a whole other range of what's possible. And that's what we're talking about. So, come join us, find a fuller, deeper sense and expression of who you are, standing in your strengths, standing in your gifts, standing with your own soul and your path, with your purpose, and taking all that love and all that service that you've ever given out into the world and being able to accept and receive that in its beautiful fullness for you in ways that you may not have ever been able to, so that you can then let that be brought forward and out in a even more full way, without sacrificing yourself, without giving yourself up as you're giving, right? There's so much around that for us who are helpers and givers and nurturers, right? So that we can learn ways, what's needed for each person, each of you, each of us, ways of that deep nourishment inside ourselves, not sacrificing, shifting and working with those paradigms so that we can give to ourselves, allow and receive what's needed, and opening into, sorry, I got distracted, right? And how we can bring ourselves back into focus and bring through what's absolutely needed for our own selves, right? Again, so that you can stand in your strengths, so you can learn the keys to nourishing self-forgiveness of all the things that haven't, like, you didn't do perfectly, that you didn't do, like, oh, I wish I had done this, I wish I had been this way, could I have done differently with my animal, could I have done differently with this person or with my business, like I should have made different choices, all the shoulds and all those different places, right? Learning those keys to how to shift those places in meaningful, impactful, long-lasting ways, healing, deep healing ways, without suffering, without re-traumatizing yourself, right? Being trauma-informed in a way that's intelligent. Sorry, I forgot to turn my notifications off. And still giving and serving the highest good, and receiving without sacrificing, advancing your heart's freedoms, advancing the places and ways that you can find freedom in yourself, while nourishing all sorts of places and pockets of forgiving yourself for whatever it is, right? And others in ways that are impactful and meaningful for you. So if all of this is, or parts of this are resonating for you, and you want to join us in weaving miracles, there's going to be a link below You can contact me directly, Sandy Rakowitz, One Heart University, and join us. We'd love to have you. We are strengthening individually and together, weaving miracles. That's what we're doing.